On May 26, 1999, Caitlin Porier was working alone at a gas station convenience store at night. Someone called the cops after midnight because they couldn't find Caitlin. When the cops got there, the store was empty and Caitlin was nowhere to be seen. They watched the security footage and saw this big guy grabbing Caitlin by the neck and dragging her out of the store around 11:40 p.m. He was wearing jeans, a baseball cap on backward, and a Yankees jersey with the number 23. Who was Caitlin Porier? Why was she killed? Who was the culprit? This is your partner in crime stories. Subscribe and let's move along this mysterious journey ahead. Donald Alban Blum was born in Minnesota on February 5, 1949. He had a tough childhood because his dad manipulated him a lot. This made him start drinking and acting out when he was still a kid. He went to a special school because of his bad behavior and skipped a lot of classes there too. His dad's violence probably messed him up badly, making him drink and act wild. Let's look at this story from a mentally healthy perspective and see where things went wrong. So as we said before, during this incident, poor Caitlin didn't seem to have a choice. Then the authorities talked to Catherine Honeck, who worked at the subway next door. Before the subway closed at 10 p.m., Catherine Honeck saw this weird guy hanging around. After she finished work, she saw him driving a black Ford F1 150 pickup truck with white markings. He drove around a bit and then parked at a cafe in Moose Lake. Catherine also noticed that Caitlin's car was still in the parking lot when she left. They got a rough idea of what the kidnapper looked like from Catherine's description and some fuzzy camera footage. He had long blonde hair and seemed to be around 25. Then they made a composite sketch based on what 4 witnesses said and put it on TV and in the papers, asking for tips. While they were gathering clues, loads of folks from all over the state came to help search the woods near the station, hoping to find Caitlin. So the cops tried everything, such as dogs and helicopters, but found nothing. They plastered Kathy's face all over the place in newspapers and billboards, making it a big deal. The sex offender place nearby said all their guys were where they should be. So it wasn't one of them who grabbed her. The cops traced the truck's license plate to Donald Blum, but his truck was white, not the black one they were looking for. On June 6, 1999, they officially called off the search, but lots of volunteers kept hunting. They figured someone must have seen something that could help find the girl. Whoever took her from the store must have been either really brave or just plain dumb. The investigators kept an eye on the security camera footage, hoping the guy would slip up again. The searchers focused on the neighborhood, figuring if the guy was from around there, someone must have seen him before. They set up a base at the Lutheran Church in Moose Lake, where they processed tips and handed out flyers. They had maps on the wall with big crosses showing where they'd already looked. Despite everyone's efforts and hopes, Caitlin never showed up. They started thinking maybe the guy who took her was into sports, especially the New York Yankees. The cops even asked a famous sports guy for help, but still no luck. Then, after 2 weeks, they got a break. Darrell Brown, who worked at the Minnesota Veterans Home, saw something that caught his eye after hearing Paul Molitor's plea on TV. So on June 18th, this guy Darrell Brown called the hotline about his co-worker, Donald Hutchinson. Turns out, Hutchinson matched the sketch of the kidnapper, and he stopped driving his black truck right after the abduction. Plus, he didn't show up for work the next day. But get this, turns out Hutchinson was Donald Blum, and he had his black truck stashed in his garage. He even had property near where Kathy worked, and when they dug deeper, they found out Blum had a record of kidnapping girls like Caitlin. The detectives moved fast and got a warrant to search for Blum. Agents from the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension tracked him down to a campground 140 miles away. They showed up early in the morning and started asking him questions. After more digging, they found out Blum had bought property near Moose Lake 2 years back. People around there said he'd been hanging around before Catalin disappeared, but hadn't been back since. Blum's boss at the veteran home didn't know about his criminal past because Blum used a different name. He kept to himself mostly and didn't mingle much. At first, Blum was all friendly and helpful when the cops talked to him, but then he clammed up and asked for a lawyer. While this was happening, the authorities were busy searching, and they found some shocking stuff at Blum's place. But they didn't spill the beans on what it was or how it tied to the case. Then they did another big search on his 20-acre property in Moose Lake with loads of folks, including National Guard members and volunteers. They combed through the woods for miles, but when it got dark, they had to call it quits. The next morning, they went back at it with even more energy. Catalin's mom had this feeling deep down that they'd find her daughter alive. Some friends hoped Catalin was being held somewhere, but the sheriff wasn't so hopeful. On the second morning of searching, they found bone-like bits in a fire pit on Blum's property. They sent those bits to the lab, and shockingly, they turned out to be human bones. They also sent a tooth found in the ashes to dental experts for identification. Dr. Ann Norlander, a certified forensic dentist, spent a lot of time and money examining the tooth. She knew that the DNA in the tooth's pulp would have been messed up by the fire, so she had to use other methods. When she found what looked like a filling, she confirmed it was a human tooth. This helped her figure out if it could have been Catalin's. Dental fillings have two parts, an organic matrix and a filler. When the fire burns away the matrix, it leaves behind particles of the filler. Analysts can use this to figure out the brand or type of filling used. Manufacturers use lots of different fillers, but none of them will show up on dental x-rays. Turns out the composition of the filling in the tooth from Blum's fire pit matched the fillings used for Catalin. Researchers found out the tooth was number 18 and belonged to a young woman. It was highly likely it belonged to Kathy, not someone else from the area. But there's a big question left unanswered. Why was Blum out of prison after kidnapping 7 girls? If the justice system had done better, Catalin might still be here. Instead, Blum got to change his name, start fresh, and keep hurting people, like he did to Catalin. Blum faced serious charges of kidnapping and criminal possession of a firearm due to his previous criminal record. Initially, he refused to cooperate, but later offered a tearful confession lasting over 2 hours. He admitted to seeing Kathy at the store, grabbing her and driving her to his motorhome. Blum claimed he strangled her out of impulse and then placed her body in a fire pit, contradicting evidence from surveillance footage and the condition of the remains. After confessing, Blum called local television stations to report his actions, seeking to protect his family from media intrusion. His confession devastated hopes of finding Kathy alive, as Blum claimed he killed her impulsively without a clear motive. However, he later recanted, attributing his confession to stress and medication. As the plea bargain was canceled, both sides prepared for trial. Over 5 weeks, more than 50 witnesses, including Blum's brother and 2 women previously kidnapped by him, testified against him. Forensic experts confirmed the tooth found belonged to Kathy, and surveillance footage supported witness the story. Blum's wife, Amy, testified about his information on the night of Kathy's disappearance, initially supporting his explanation. Blum himself took the stand, denying the kidnapping but admitting to making a false confession due to media pressure and marital issues. Despite his emotional story, inconsistencies in Blom's statements undermined his credibility. After consideration, the jury found him guilty, sentencing him to life without parole. Blom maintained his innocence, expressing confidence in his appeal. In 2004, the appeals court upheld Blom's conviction, despite acknowledging imperfections in the trial. The case prompted the passage of Catalan's law, aimed at enhancing crime prevention and monitoring of sex offenders like Blom. What do you think about this case? Stay tuned. We'll catch you with a new nail-biting crime thriller tomorrow.